Caddis Maximus here, this time with a review of the DeWalt DCD 701 Xtreme Super Compact Brushless 12-volt cordless lithium-ion drill. I'll be doing this as a two-part review. I'll do another video where I do a teardown and just take a look at the inside. I always like to add a little extra grease to the drill. So these are DeWalt's new competition. They were taking all their sweet time releasing brushless 12-volt tools, where Milwaukee and Makita had been in the market for a long time. I'm going to try to pack as much information in as short as possible. This drill is rated for, I believe, 3/4 inch with a spade bit in wood. I don't know if that's even first or second gear, but that seems pretty small. So I'm going to go ahead and use a 1-inch wood auger or ship auger and a 1-inch Irwin speed bore, which are notoriously tough to drive. I actually did a Milwaukee 3/8 quarter drill, old and newer comparison with these bits, just to show how tough a drilling operation. And this little drill is pretty powerful. In first gear, it really should just drive those without much of an issue. Fortunately, in Europe, cordless tools, part of the standard, I'm not exactly sure how it works. If it's laws, they actually have to give you specific torque measurements, which are usually hard and soft. The hard torque measurement on this drill is 42 foot-pounds of torque in first gear and 16 foot-pounds of torque in second, which is actually surprising. Although the same ratings for this, the DCD 996, which is the big bad 20-volt, is 70 foot-pounds of hard torque. Hard torque and soft torque. Hard torque is when you're drawing like a bolt down. It wouldn't be like in steel, but if you're driving like a wood lag, a big wood, coarse-fed wood bolt, as it cinches down and then starts to, reach the bottom, that's the amount of torque that it will kind of impulse. It'll be able to surge. Versus soft torque, which is if you're just holding it or driving some kind of winch, how much torque it can output continuously. And there aren't ratings for the soft torque on this. Nonetheless, it's a big number. It's very competitive in the market, even against the Milwaukees. One thing I will say is it seems that these brushless, the impact driver versions of these new brushless are not as powerful as the Milwaukees. I've watched several videos. The Milwaukee wins out. But the drill itself is actually very competitive, and it's kind of surprising. So the Milwaukee impacts are stronger, but the Milwaukee drill wasn't as impressive as this DeWalt drill. Makitas are good. There's actually a surprising number of brands. Anyway, this thing is super compact, weighs 2.5 pounds with the battery. If we compare it, and I still have the side handle on this drill because I over-tightened it a lot, and I partially stripped out the handle and I have to use pliers to get it off. Sorry about that. Anyway, against the big one, let me zoom out a little bit. Here we are. It might be easier just standing up, kind of. If we put both the batteries, this D996 does have one of the tall 5-amp battery packs. Maybe if I had it in frame there, you could see it's far shorter as far as standing. If we put both the back ends together here, if I get them real close, there we go. We can see that it is a good 2.5 to 3 inches shorter and offers still more than 50% of the power, but it does not offer anywhere near the build quality. The tool only on this thing is still over $100. If you were real lucky, you could get just the bare tool for $100. This is far better of a drill. Just saying, this isn't in the same market. These are on sale with 2 batteries, a 12 and 20 volt combination charger instead of just a 12 volt standard charger, and the bag for $99, the whole set. It's actually pretty competitive. And that's what I'll mention, is that DeWalt seems all the money is now being spent, mainly on the motor, the electronics, the batteries. DeWalt has less overhead on this tool. It's obvious. It has an okay chuck, but it is not a great chuck. It's nothing compared to the 996, which has, an all steel ratcheting chuck with carbide insert teeth. A really nice chuck. This is more of your standard, plastic collar chuck. One other thing I'd like to mention is replacing chucks on these newer DeWalts, and it may be true with many of the cordless manufacturers. They've gotten so many complaints about those little center lock screws. You can see that this not only does not have a lock screw, the chuck was never even manufactured with a hole to accept one. So they just given up on lock screws, and what they do is at the factory, they just torque the chuck on more than tight enough to handle any kind of abuse that the drill may encounter. That does not mean over time that you may be doing a hard reversing operation, which is an advantage of brushless tools, is that they have full power in reverse. Old brush cordless tools have a little bit less power around anywhere from 15 to 30% less power in reverse. Where on brushless tools, it's full power in both directions. So that's one concern. The other issue is it's going to be on there so tight that if you wanted to replace it, many common methods is to put an Allen wrench in there and hit it, or maybe even use an impact driver and just unscrew it that way. This is so tight you're likely to blow out the gears, and you actually have to take apart the whole tool and find a way to grasp the back of the shaft in order to remove the chuck. And so I didn't want to mention that. We do have an LED footlight, which is reasonably bright, but you know, it's not great. Since they have the space under the trigger, or above the trigger right there, why don't we just have LEDs in both spots? I would kind of appreciate that, but at least they included a footlight, which does okay when it's actually pretty dark. Also has DeWalt's updated design where they have the word brushless slathered on it even more than the old ones, where now it's brushless up here. It's not, they sell it as an XR, but it doesn't even say XR anymore. The black outline, the word brushless, where they used to be XR, and you see the brushless is a little more subdued. They put rubber overmolding over that grip area right here, which may or may not work out because that's probably going to be the first place it really does peel, is where you're always rubbing your hand. So we'll see how that holds up. Oh, I just put a bit in there. It really is strong. Sounds pretty nice. DeWalt's had enough complaints over the years where their spindles are really tight. They use two needle bearings, and the spindles, my hand will shake a little bit, but the spindle in this drill from the factory is really tight. I really do appreciate that. And it is strong enough where you're not relying on the cheesy chuck to ratchet it, so I always just use power to tighten down the chuck. It has a traditional clutch in it, so this would be a mechanical clutch, where this is like operating a screw mechanism where it's moving a plate in and out against springs. Where on the bigger drill, say this is DeWalt here, this clutch here is actually like a volume knob. All it's doing is just telling the motor how much power to output, and it actually works a lot better. It's very consistent and of course reliable, and you get a really nice. Where this one is just like plastic detents, and so it's kind of mushy. One other thing is it's so tucked in that when you're, you want to, oh, I had it down too low, so I'm going to crank it up. Man, you're just bashing your fingers into that, or if you're out a little bit more, then you're bashing your knuckle when you're adjusting the clutch. I think they could have done something a little bit different with that mechanism. The other thing is this is not metal. They did something cheesy. It's like gray plastic with aluminum fleck in it. It's like, oh, come on, don't make it faux metal. I think that's just, a little bit cheeseball there that they have the aluminum fleck. Pretty cheesy. Don't know if I mentioned 425 RPM in low, 1500 RPM in high, so pretty good gear ranges. Did come with a little belt clip. It actually didn't come with 3 batteries, I forgot. I actually bought the little impact wrench, 3/8 wrench. On these sets, if you're buying one of the sets, you like the DeWalt's, then get the one with a little impact driver. If you're looking for a little drill set, and maybe even have a much older NiCad or nickel metal hydride 18-volt drill, these modern 12-volt units are as good as those old 18-volt NiCads, and they're just unbelievably compact. Here it is in my hand. It's probably the best way to exemplify it. I'm an average 6-foot-tall, person, and yep, I'm a real person. I'm not an AI. And we can see that, man, that is super compact, and it just has huge amounts of power, really, for such a small drill. Here, I'll put it in second. If you really kind of overload it with a light amount of trigger, it will give you some torque and then will cut out. But I kind of like the DeWalt versus some like the Milwaukee drills, is because the DeWalt seems that it'll try for a second or two and before it gives up. And then if you really give it more power, it's really surprising. I mean, this will burn my hand in second gear. I mean, it's probably one of the first little 12-volt drills where I couldn't grip the chuck really hard and just get it to stall at full throttle. The batteries do have little meters on them, which I also like. They do have 3 amp hour higher capacity, but I'm glad they're coming at least with the 2s. And it's an okay one, but really I would have preferred the old model. They kind of like went cheesy. So here's those, and they seem decent until you turn on the traditional ones. These are much brighter. You can see these in the sunlight. These are going to be kind of hard to see. you're going to have to put your hand over it to see it during the daytime in the sunlight. I should also mention that these are just the 2 amp basic charger. It'll take, from a dead battery, at least an hour for these to charge it up. However, what's nice is all these DeWalt chargers are dual voltage. So like with the big drill, the DCB 101, this is a 4 amp charger, and it will pound these little 12 volt 2 amp batteries full in like 30 minutes or less. And they'll get pretty warm doing it. Alright, we'll go and start with this poorly made, newer generation Irwin short ship auger. 1 inch, we're in low gear, and this is some pretty dry Douglas fir. We'll see if it can just do that. It's only rated, quote unquote, for 3/4 of an inch, but we'll really see if it can do an inch properly here. It has no problem. What are they talking about, an inch? They are underrating this little guy. Oh yeah, that was just non-issue. It was even starting to jam up in there. I mean, it barely even slowed down. If you're noticing that there's some more holes, I was hitting pause instead of hitting record. Interesting. We're going to try with the 1 inch speed bore. These are notorious. In an earlier video with Milwaukee 3/8 inch corded hole shooter drills, I showed how tough it is. So we'll see what this little guy does in first gear at 425 RPM. Get this in a nice spot. Wow. That was actually pretty awesome. This is a 1 inch speed bore, and they're advertising this thing as being rated for 3/4 of an inch in wood. It actually did better than those 3.5 amp Milwaukee corded drill, or at least as good. It drove that really well. And for the power comparison, we're going to use the 996. We're going to be in second gear, which is 1300 RPM on that exact same 1 inch Irwin speed bore, just to see. That did it in first gear, and that was impressive. But we'll see if the big brother can actually do it in second gear at basically 3 times the speed. And these Irwin speed bores, once again, are hard to turn. No problem. There's a reason he's the bigger brother. Alright, and here we are again. I'm just for funsies, I actually have this in second gear back to the 1 inch poorly made ship auger. And we'll just see kind of what it does. See if it can attempt to drive this at 1500 RPM. That would be an amazing feat for such a tiny drill. Nope. Nope, not quite. Why the heck not? I got the 996 on speed 3, 2000 RPM. We'll see if it will finish up the job the other one couldn't at 1500. That was asking a lot. Yeah. So what we learned from that, what we learned is it actually really is surprising. If you're anybody who remembers or who's older, I'm not that old, but I've been collecting tools and you run into lots of those 9.6 volt Makita. I'm not super young either, but those Makita stick battery drills, they sold millions of those things. If you remember those things or any of the early NiCad generation, these new 12 volt brushless compact drills are just tons of power. And we did show that in first gear they somehow have various like half inch or 3/4 inch ratings. We saw that in first gear it has no problem driving a 1 inch Irwin speed bore, which are really tough, and like 1 inch auger bits in first gear, no problem. We saw that maybe 5 foot-pounds of torque, maybe just a little bit more, maybe 8 to 10 Newton meters more torque, and it would have driven a 1 inch ship auger at second gear at 1500 RPM. So really, it really is a pretty sick, pretty powerful drill. But is it going to do the job of something like this? No. But it really has the same kind of, I would say, DNA as this. It really is a stout, nice, tight spindle, little brushless, cordless drill. And it uses the slide packs. Makita started out with the torpedo packs and went to slides. It allows much better ergonomics than the torpedo packs because they just have those big handles. You have to be aware of that and kind of make your choice based on those type of ergonomics and whether you already invested, say, in DeWalt batteries. Although I would say that this bit going down into maybe 6 inches of lumber or so is probably was about the limit. You could hear this right when I was getting near stopping that it was starting to bog down. So we're getting close there, but still, just an impressive performance. I mean, just for one of the most microscopic little drills. I mean, really. Anyway, I'm sorry for the long review, but kind of want to add my own 2 cents when it comes to these tools. And think for 99 bucks, this whole set is really, it's an awesome deal. Normally 140, and if to tell you the truth, if I was paying the normal 140 shelf price, I would rather pay another 10 bucks and have them put on an all metal chuck. The gearbox isn't such a big deal because all the internals and the ring gears of the planetary system still are all steel. This is just a plastic casing, but would have liked to see a better chuck. And quite frankly, you know, this tool could use it. It really has a substantial amount of power in first gear. And if people are using this to drill in the metals with smooth shank bits, and that bit binds, yeah, you're going to start running into issues with it slipping, inevitably, with all kind of basic chucks. That's what's so great about key chucks, is you can go around all the holes and just wrench the beans out of it. I mean, the real solution to that issue was the nice chucks here that have these carbide inserts that are much harder than the high-speed steel or any other steels that you're putting in there from the bits, and bite in and really grab. We can see the example of that right here. It's just those little teeth that bite into the steel and really grasp it. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.